Sandman.
Greetings friends. In this video I will tell you about an infamous figure from Mexican folklore who has become a true legend. Her story and cruel deeds are frightening for adults and children alike. Be vigilant when near bodies of water, and if you see a pale woman and hear her beckoning voice, gather all your will and run away immediately. In the dark of night, her mournful cries can be heard echoing through villages and towns across Mexico and the southwestern United States.
Ay, mis hijos queridos.
She wails in anguish. She is La Llorona, the Weeping Woman, one of the most famous and chilling figures in Mexican folklore and Hispanic legend. Her story has been passed down through generations, told around campfires and whispered about in the shadowy corners of small towns. Some versions differ slightly, but the core tale remains the same, one of betrayal, infanticide, eternal sorrow, and ghostly vengeance. The legend of La Llorona dates back to the days of the Aztec civilization that dominated central Mexico in the centuries before the Spanish conquest. Her name derives from the Spanish phrase La Llorona, which simply means the weeping woman. In Aztec mythology, she was known as Cihuacotl, the ghostly apparition of a woman who had died in childbirth. It was believed that she haunted rivers and still bodies of water, searching in vain for her lost children. Any infant brought too close to these watery realms risked being snatched by the wailing spirit. Over time, as Aztec culture blended with that of Spanish colonists, the legend evolved and took on new layers of tragedy. The tale became a morality story, a dire warning to women about the consequences of infidelity and the murder of innocents. While details vary across different tellings, the most widely known version of the La Llorona legend goes something like this. A beautiful young Mexican woman named Maria fell hopelessly in love with a dashing man of wealth and nobility. Despite her lowly roots as a peasant, he was smitten by her beauty and they began a torrid love affair. After giving birth to twin sons, Maria hoped her lover would leave his wife and marry her, but he refused, claiming it would be too scandalous. Consumed by rage and jealousy at his rejection, Maria committed an unthinkable act in a moment of blind passion. She drowned her two infant sons in the depths of a nearby river, snuffing out their lives in cold blood. Immediately after, she was struck by horror and remorse at what she had done. By some accounts, the rivers overflowed their banks and swept her children's bodies away forever. In other versions, Maria simply went mad with guilt, wandering the riverbanks in a daze and wailing for her drowned babies. Her desperate cries alerted first her lover and then the villagers to her horrible crime. Upon discovering the truth, her aristocratic lover was disgusted and shunned her forever, while the villagers looked on Maria with hatred and scorn. She was branded a pariah, a filicidal monster not worthy of God's mercy or human compassion. In her final anguished moments, Maria was consumed utterly by remorse and threw herself into the same river where her children had perished, cries of
Ay, mis hijos,
escaping her lips as the murky waters closed over her head. But death was no escape for Maria. Her brutal act and fiery remorse sealed her eternal fate, to wander forever as a lost and restless spirit, crying out endlessly for her lost children. Her very name is said to mean the wailing ghost or the woman who wails. La Llorona's spirit is permanently trapped in the agonizing limbo between life and death, unable to pass on to the afterlife until she can locate the souls of her drowned offspring. The sound of her bone-chilling cries of
ay, mis hijos,
is said to be the last thing many unfortunate souls hear before La Llorona's skeletal hands reach out to drag them down into the depths. She is frequently depicted as a haggard woman in a tattered white gown with long tangled hair and sunken eyes, roaming shorelines and riverbanks in the dead of night. Other times she appears as a more alluring feminine spirit, using her beauty to lure in unsuspecting victims before revealing her monstrous visage. The places associated with La Llorona are many, spanning both Mexico and the American Southwest, where many Hispanics have kept her legend alive. In Mexico City, the dried-up canals and rivers where the Aztecs once fished are said to be some of her favorite haunts. The old El Alacran Canal, now paved over by avenues and highways, is a particular hotspot. In San Antonio, Texas and Santa Fe, New Mexico, the rivers threading through the old city's Hispanic quarters have long been said to be stalked by her presence at night. And near Tucson, Arizona, a rural area known as La Llorona's Path is shunned after dark due to its reputation for extreme misfortune. From wailing woman to child-killing demon, La Llorona's tragic story has evolved into a parable of morality and justice over the centuries. She is seen simultaneously as a pitiful, remorseful soul and as a vicious, vengeful spirit who snatches innocent children as her own warped penance. Traditional Hispanic families invoke her name to warn misbehaving children at bedtime, threatening that La Llorona will come for them at night if they don't obey. Her tears are said to be a cold omen, a portent of imminent death or grave misfortune for those who hear them. Given her permeation into Hispanic cultural identity and folklore, La Llorona is one of the most recreated figures from Mexican legend in popular culture today. Over the years, she has been interpreted in books, movies, television shows, operas, artworks, and even video games across the Spanish-speaking world and beyond. Perhaps her most famous English-language appearance was in the opening of the hugely popular 2017 animated film, Coco, by Pixar. In the film's folklore-inspired first act, La Llorona appears on a pedestrian bridge attempting to lure away a young boy before skeletal ancestors arrive to rescue him. Another high-profile adaptation was the 2019 supernatural horror film, The Curse of La Llorona, which brought the terrifying folktale to the big screen. The film follows a social worker in 1970s Los Angeles who has disturbed the vengeful spirit after ignoring ominous warnings about the accursed entity. In Mexico and other Latin American countries, the story has been told and retold countless times across various forms of media over many decades. A famous 1960 Mexican horror film titled La Llorona was one of the first major adaptations and essentially defined how the iconic wailing woman would look and sound to later generations. Regional theater troupes in Mexico and the American Southwest still regularly stage live performances of La Llorona plays and operas, keeping the oral legend alive through live dramatic retellings. Some of these lavish productions have been staged yearly for decades, becoming deeply ingrained customs in certain communities. The character of La Llorona has also cameoed or been referenced in numerous TV shows, movies, novels and short stories over the years. From episodes of supernatural-themed series like Supernatural and Grimm to literary works by acclaimed Hispanic authors like Sandra Cisneros, the Weeping Woman's unmistakable trail of anguish has seeped into works across many genres. Perhaps the surest sign of La Llorona's enduring legacy is the sheer ubiquity of her iconic imagery and likeness. The wailing woman's visage, cloaked in tattered white with long, tangled locks, has been appropriated and emblazoned on merchandise of all kinds, from decorations and apparel to horror movie posters. Her skull-like face, sunken vacant eyes, and mouth opened wide in a tormented shriek have become instantly recognizable symbols throughout Mexico, the American Southwest, and Hispanic diaspora communities around the world. La Llorona has been forever seared into the cultural psyche of an entire people. While clearly originating in fiction and folklore, over the centuries La Llorona's legend has become so ingrained that it has blurred the lines between myth and reality at times. There are numerous credible claims of actual paranormal encounters with her spirit over the generations, if such encounters are to be believed. As recently as 2014 in the town of Cannon City, Colorado, a woman supposedly captured video footage of a mysterious wailing figure seemingly materializing out of thin air near a creek before vanishing just as quickly. While hoaxes and rational explanations for such phenomena cannot be ruled out, the parallels to La Llorona's myth are undeniable. In some rural Hispanic communities, encountering La Llorona has practically become a shorthand euphemism or folk saying, acknowledging those who claim to have experienced some kind of unexplainable, disturbing, or tragic event seemingly stemming from the supernatural. More than just a folktale, the Weeping Woman has become an ingrained part of the Hispanic cultural and religious experience. Revered academics and historians have seriously studied and analyzed La Llorona's origins and deep roots, attempting to pry apart reality from fiction and determine what grains of truth may lurk within her legend. A few have even theorized about potential real-life figure or figures that may have originally inspired the terrifying fable. For the most part, such debates will remain purely academic as the facts behind La Llorona's genesis are forever shrouded in the mysteries of history, much like the ghostly apparition herself is draped in a veil of night. As long as children fear the dark and parents seek cautionary tales to impart morals, her wails will continue to echo, intertwining inextricably with Hispanic culture itself. While functioning on its surface as a classical folktale of terror meant to frighten misbehaving youth to their cores, La Llorona's legend contains deeper allegorical meanings and insights into the Hispanic cultural psyche that have allowed it to endure for so long. From one perspective, she serves as a dire morality warning against succumbing to the sins of pride, vanity, jealousy, and wrath, vices traditionally seen as transgressions against the natural order by the heavily Catholic Mexican culture that birthed her tale. She is vengeance personified, a reminder of the devastation wrought by unbridled female passion. Other scholars see La Llorona as a more sympathetic, even feminist figure, a woman driven to madness by men's callous deeds and the suffocating sexism of her era. Her very existence embodies the tribulations faced by Mexico's indigenous women during the colonial period, resisting with futility against a cruel double standard of subservience imposed by patriarchal Spanish rule. Her eternal wanderings and plaintive cries evoke vivid imagery of La Madre Dolida, or the grieving, suffering mother, a venerated icon in Hispanic culture. Losing one's child is seen as the most profound anguish a parent can experience, a severing of sacred family bonds. La Llorona is the personification of this anguish taken to disturbing extremes. Some modern interpretations have cast the Weeping Woman less as a ghostly villain and more as an imperfect, tragic anti-heroine, a pitiable victim of misogyny warped by her own sins into a monster of sorts. Her obsessive quest for motherly redemption after making the ultimate transgression invites psychological analysis and relatability. There is little debate that La Llorona symbolizes powerful concepts of death, loss, morality, and the sanctity of motherhood that have profoundly resonated for generations. For all her capacity to terrify, her appeal as an iconic figure lies in how she embodies and explores fundamental themes weaved into the very fabric of Hispanic civilization. Channeling the agony of betrayal and the pain of dead innocence, La Llorona endures as one of the most chilling and philosophically rich creations within the entire Latin American folkloric tradition. The echo of her grief will doubtless continue to haunt and fascinate for generations yet to come.